The silent cage in the dark forest. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. Ethan, a human soldier, moved slowly between the twisted alien trees. His boots crunched the cold, wet ground, but he made no other sound. He had been following a weak signal from his scanner. Something strange. Something alive. The deeper he went, the more the air changed. It was heavy, filled with a smell like old metal and rotten fruit. Then he saw it. A cage. It stood alone in the middle of a small clearing. The bars were rusted, bent in strange ways. The ground around it was covered in mud and strange purple moss. And inside was a little girl. Not human. Her skin was pale blue, almost gray, and her small body was curled in the corner of the cage. She had no clothes, just a torn blanket covering her shoulders. Her hair was long and tangled, full of leaves and dirt. She didn't look at Ethan. She didn't move. She just stared at the ground, like her mind was far away. Ethan stepped closer, raising his rifle carefully. "Hello?" he said softly. "Can you hear me?" No answer. His voice seemed to disappear into the cold air. He looked around. No tracks, no noise, no sign of who put her here. It felt wrong, a trap maybe. But the girl, she was real. She was breathing, even if slowly. He stepped closer. "I won't hurt you," he said. "I'm human. Can you talk?" Still nothing. He kneeled by the cage. Her eyes slowly turned to him. They were big, glowing slightly in the dark. Not with anger, not with fear, with sadness. Deep, endless sadness. "I'm going to open this," he whispered. "Okay?" She didn't move, but she didn't say no. Ethan pulled a tool from his belt and unlocked the cage door. It opened with a loud creak. The sound echoed in the trees. The girl flinched, but didn't run. Very slowly, Ethan reached out. His hand. "Come on, I'll get you out of here." For a long moment, she didn't react. Then, she moved. Her tiny fingers touched his hand, cold, thin, shaking. She stepped out, 1 foot at a time, as if scared the ground would eat her. Her legs were weak, she almost fell. Ethan caught her gently. "You're safe now," he said. But the second those words left his mouth, a growl came from the trees. Low, hungry. Not human. Ethan looked up fast, pulling the girl behind him. The trees around the clearing moved, but there was no wind. Something was watching. Something big. The girl clung to his leg. He scanned the shadows. Another growl, closer this time. He couldn't see the creature, but it could see them. "We have to go," Ethan whispered. The girl nodded slowly, her eyes wide now. She didn't speak, but she understood. She had lived with fear for so long, she knew exactly what was happening. Ethan lifted her into his arms. She was too light. Skin and bones. He started walking fast, his rifle ready. Behind them, in the clearing, something stepped into the cage. The trap had been set again. Ethan kept moving. He didn't speak. He didn't stop. The girl's head rested on his shoulder, but her eyes stayed open, watching, listening. Finally, after a long hour, they reached Ethan's small camp. It was hidden inside a hill covered with camouflage. He slid inside and locked the door behind them. "Safe," he said again. But he wasn't sure. He laid her on a warm blanket and brought her water. She took it, holding the cup with both hands. Her fingers were shaking so badly some of the water spilled. She didn't apologize. Ethan sat across from her. "What's your name?" he asked. She looked up. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't cry. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came. She closed her eyes and mouthed one word. Ethan leaned closer. "What did you say?" the girl whispered again. So soft, he almost missed it. "Mama." The room was quiet again. But outside the camp in the dark forest, something breathed, and it wasn't human. Something had watched Ethan take the girl. and it had no plan to let her go for long. Ethan couldn't sleep. The alien girl lay curled in the corner of his hidden camp, wrapped in blankets, but her eyes stayed open. She blinked very little, silent, still. She didn't cry, she didn't talk. But something about the way she stared at the entrance, it made Ethan uneasy, as if she was waiting for something, or someone. The air outside had grown colder. The strange fog from the forest had followed them, crawling over the hill like it had a mind of its own. Ethan checked the sensors around the camp, motion detectors, heat trackers, scanners. Nothing showed. But he knew something was out there. He had felt it. He had heard it, that low growl, that movement in the trees. He watched the girl as she slowly raised a finger and pointed to the wall. Her lips parted. "They come," she whispered. Ethan froze. "Who comes?" She didn't answer. She simply stared, her tiny body trembling. Suddenly the motion alarm beeped, one sharp click, then silence. He grabbed his rifle, his heart pounding, hard. He crept to the door, checking the monitor. Nothing but fog, just gray and white. And then something passed through the screen. Fast, a blur, not big, but fast, too fast. Ethan opened the hatch just a crack and peeked outside. The trees were gone, swallowed by mist. He took one step out, another. That's when he heard it. Crunch. Behind him he turned, gun up, but no one was there. Only the sound of light feet, circling. Something hissed. Ethan backed toward the camp, but from the corner of his eye he saw a shape in the fog. It stood low, crawling. Not quite human. It had long limbs, bending the wrong way. Its face was hidden under black skin, like wet. Leather stretched over bone, and it was watching him. He aimed, but it vanished into the mist. A shriek echoed, sharp and high. From the other side, then another. They were surrounding him. He dashed back into the camp and sealed the door. The girl hadn't moved, but her eyes locked onto his. "They want me," she said quietly. Ethan looked at her, breathing hard. "Why?" "I was their food. I was the trap," she said in her small voice. "They left me. For others." "Others?" he repeated. She nodded. "You." Ethan's hands clenched. "So they use you to catch prey." The girl looked down. "I begged them. I begged not to go in the cage, but the older ones, they said I was worthless, that I would help the family one last time." Ethan's chest tightened. This was not just about monsters in the woods. This was something worse. He looked at her, really looked, and saw she had scars, thin lines along her arms barely healed, bite marks, claw marks. "How long were you in that cage?" he asked softly. She didn't answer. She just whispered, "Too long." Outside, something slammed into the door. Hard. The camp shook. Ethan raised his gun again. "Can they break in?" She didn't speak. Another slam, and another. This time, a long scratch ran across the metal wall. "Screech!" Ethan pulled the girl behind him. "I won't let them take you." "But you don't understand," she said, her voice rising with fear. "They don't just kill, they turn. They changed my family, my uncle, my brother. They became those things." Ethan's face went pale. "Those creatures like were once people." The girl nodded, tears now spilling from her wide eyes. A low voice came from outside. Not a growl. A voice. It spoke in her language, twisted and broken. Her whole body froze. "That was my uncle," she said. "His mind is gone, but sometimes he speaks. Sometimes he remembers me." Ethan's blood turned cold. "Are they intelligent?" he asked. "Do they think?" She slowly nodded. "They know pain, and they enjoy fear." The power flickered. The lights blinked once, then again. Then everything went dark. Ethan grabbed the emergency light, holding it high. The girl whispered, "They like the dark." He pulled her close and looked around, his breath fast. He had been trained for war, trained to fight aliens, trained to survive, but not this. Not this kind of nightmare. He looked into the girl's glowing eyes. "What's your name?" he asked, again trying to keep her grounded. She hesitated, then softly said, "Lyra." Ethan touched her shoulder. "I'll protect you, Lyra. I promise." But in the distance, deep inside the fog, another voice answered in a hiss. "You can't." Ethan didn't sleep that night, even when the camp stayed quiet, even when the creatures didn't return. He sat with the emergency light on low, watching the small alien girl, Lyra, sleep with her arms tightly around her knees. She didn't snore, didn't move, didn't dream. She just sat curled up like someone who had spent too many nights waiting to be taken away. Her body was thin. Her arms had bruises in the shape of fingers. Her skin was a pale blue, but her cheeks were drained of any warmth. Ethan stared at the scanner. No movement. But it didn't mean they were safe. Earlier, something had spoken outside. Something that used to be her uncle. It said only 2 words in her alien language, but those 2 words had frozen Lyra like ice. Now, as the weak light began to fade, she suddenly opened her eyes. They didn't use to sound like that. She whispered. Before they changed, Ethan looked at her. "Do you remember how they changed?" She was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke slowly, like each word weighed 1,000 pounds. "They went into the fog, looking for a creature. They were hunters. They were brave. Then they didn't come back. When they did, they were wrong. Eyes missing, joints twisted, skin like ash. And hungry. Hungry for screams." Ethan clenched his jaw. He hated stories like this. Not because they scared him, though they did, but because they were real. He had seen other planets. He had seen what dark science, or darker magic, could do to people. "What, about your mother?" he asked. Lyra looked away. "I don't know," she said. "She told me to hide. She pushed me under the rocks when the howling started. I heard her fighting, screaming. Then it stopped. I thought she was dead. So when my family came back, changed, I begged them to help me find her, but they didn't speak. They locked me in the cage." Ethan said nothing. He reached for a ration pack, opened it, and gave her a piece of soft bread. She took it with shaking hands. "You're strong," he told her. "No," she said with a soft voice. "I'm forgotten." "What do you mean?" "I don't think I remember my own name," she whispered. "I only remember Lyra because my mother used to call me that, but I don't remember saying it myself. I don't know if it was my name or hers." Ethan leaned closer. "You don't remember what you were called?" She shook her head. "Not for a long time. Maybe they took it. Maybe it's lost in the fog too." The thought chilled him. A child forgetting her own name. What kind of fear did that? He turned to his portable computer. The map scanner was weak, but maybe, just maybe, if they retraced her journey, they could find out where she came from, where her mother might be. Ethan asked, "Do you remember the way home?" She blinked slowly. "Only in pieces. I remember trees with blue fruit. I remember a rock that looked like a sleeping face, and a river that sang." "That's something," Ethan said. "Draw it for me." Lyra crawled over to him and took a small metal stick. Carefully, she began drawing on the screen's dust-covered surface. Her hand shook, but her memory was sharper than he expected. Circles, lines, curves. She drew something that looked like a trail. She paused, then added an X near a strange circle. "This is where I hid," she said. "Where Mama pushed me down." Ethan saved the drawing and nodded. "Then we'll go there." She looked up fast. "You'll take me back?" If your mother's out there, we'll find her, he promised. But what if she's one of them now? Ethan didn't answer for a moment, then he said, Then we'll set her free. Lyra hugged herself. I'm scared. I am too, Ethan admitted. But we can't run forever. Suddenly, a thud came from above. Lyra gasped. Ethan grabbed his rifle. He looked at the motion sensor, still empty, but something was on the roof. The sound came again. Then, silence. Lyra whispered, They know we're leaving. Ethan turned off the light. Darkness wrapped around them. But even in the pitch black, her glowing eyes looked back at him. I want to remember my name, she whispered. We'll find it together, Ethan said. Outside, a long screech cut through the air. Not human, not alien. Something between both, and worse. Ethan walked carefully through the strange woods, one hand on his rifle, the other holding Lyra's small, cold fingers. The fog wasn't as thick in this area, but the forest still felt wrong, like it was watching. The trees had twisted, shapes, and some even looked like broken statues. Black vines hung from the branches like nooses. The ground was soft and wet under their boots, and every step felt too loud. Behind them, the safe camp was gone. Ethan had packed what he could in his backpack, but safety was a thing of the past now. Lyra's quiet voice had led them here step by step, drawing a trail in the dust, in the dirt, in her memories. She didn't speak much, but when she did, her words were strange, like she was remembering while dreaming. I used to climb that tree, she whispered, pointing at one with thick roots curling out like claws. That one? Ethan asked, surprised. You're sure? She nodded. Mama said the fruit only grew after the red rain. We used to wait for it together. Ethan glanced at the sky. It was gray now, silent. No rain, no sun. What's the red rain? He asked. Lyra looked at him. Blood. He stopped walking. She blinked slowly. That's what it looked like. It came the same day the monsters screamed. That's the day Mama hid me. They walked in silence after that. Each hour the forest grew stranger. They passed trees with claw marks, bones scattered near rocks, and once, a half-buried boot. Ethan didn't stop to check if it was human. Lyra paused at a stone that looked like a broken animal's face. This is near the river, she said. Ethan raised his head, listening. Faint, but yes, he heard it. Water. But it wasn't normal water. It was singing, a soft, high-pitched hum, not words, not music, just a tone, like voices buried in the current. Why does the river sing? Ethan asked. Lyra's voice was quiet. They say souls go in the water when they don't know where else to go. The river was close now, wide, shining, like black glass. It moved slowly, but the hum was loud. Lyra pointed to the far side. That way. The cave is near the cliffs. They crossed carefully. Ethan held her tight as he stepped on stones and over roots. The water licked his boots, freezing cold. Once, he looked down and thought he saw something. A hand. A face? He didn't look again. When they reached the far side, Lyra began walking ahead, her bare feet making no sound. She moved like she had done it many times, but her steps slowed. The closer they came to the cliffs, a hole in the rocks appeared, small, hidden by vines. There, she said. That's where I hid. Mama told me not to make a sound. Ethan crouched and looked inside. It was a small cave, dry. The air was heavy. He saw scratch marks on the walls, a broken toy, a blanket. She was here, he whispered. Lyra crawled inside and touched the wall. I scratched the rocks, she said. I thought if I wrote something, Mama could find me. Ethan pulled out a small flashlight. The beam showed something on the wall, tiny markings, a circle, a triangle, a symbol repeated over and over. Lyra stared at it. That's the family mark. He looked at her. Then we're close. She nodded. She must have gone to the tower. What tower? The one with the fire on top. The place they never let me go. Ethan remembered seeing something strange on the scanner. A tall shape deep in the woods, half buried in mountain. Stone, why would she go there? He asked. She said that's where the cure is. Lyra said. Ethan froze. Cure? She believed something could fix them. The ones who turned. That's why she left me here. She went to try and save them. Ethan's heart beat faster. So, the mother was alive, and she had gone willingly into the monster's nest. Before he could say anything, Lyra screamed. He turned fast, weapon up. She was staring at the rocks, a single word carved into the wall. It was her name, not Lyra. Serene. She touched the name like it was warm. That's me, she whispered. That's really me. But before Ethan could speak, a voice came from behind the vines. A low, broken voice. Serene. The girl's eyes filled with tears. That's her, she said. That's my mama. Ethan spun around, pushing back the vines. A figure stood, there thin, shaking. An alien woman, weak and covered in mud with wild hair and a limp. But her eyes were still full of love and fear. They followed me, she whispered. They're coming. Ethan stepped between the alien woman and the cave, his rifle raised, scanning the trees behind her. The woman, Serene's mother, was shaking badly, her arms wrapped around herself. Her legs wobbled and blood dripped from a cut on her forehead. But she didn't collapse. Her eyes stayed locked on her daughter, who stood frozen at the cave's mouth. Serene, the mother whispered again, her voice soft like dry leaves blowing in the wind. Serene didn't move. Her hands were tight against her chest, her lips trembling. Mama, she said, almost like she didn't believe her own eyes. The woman took a slow step forward. You remember, she said, tears forming in her glowing violet eyes. You remember your name. Ethan lowered his rifle slightly. Are you hurt? She nodded slowly, but her focus didn't leave her daughter. They chased me for days. I kept hiding. I thought they would find this place first. I thought she was gone. Serene ran to her and wrapped her arms tightly around her mother's thin waist. The woman fell to her knees and hugged her back with all the strength she had left. I looked everywhere. She cried softly into her daughter's hair. I followed their scent. I followed the blood trails. I prayed. Please don't take my child. Ethan looked around. The trees were too quiet. The air too still. Then he heard it. A voice. Not human. Not alien. It was flat. Cold. Full of hunger. Mother and daughter. Reunited. Ethan turned sharply. From behind a fallen tree something rose. Tall, thin, skin hanging like wet cloth. Its mouth opened too wide. Its eyes were gone. More shapes followed. At least 5. Serene's mother screamed. Run! Ethan fired. The first shot hit the closest creature in the chest, but it didn't stop. It flinched, then kept walking like it didn't feel pain. The second shot tore through its shoulder. Still no reaction. Serene grabbed her mother's arm. Come on, Mama. They stumbled into the cave. Ethan followed, firing once more before sealing the entrance with a thick slab of stone that had been pulled down before. He pressed his back to it, panting. The creatures slammed into the outside. Boom, boom, boom. Dust fell from the ceiling. The stone cracked slightly. We have to move, Ethan said. This place won't hold for long. Serene's mother, still breathing heavily, said, They don't stop, they don't sleep. Then we'll outrun them, Ethan replied. The woman shook her head. You don't understand. They can smell her now. Ethan looked at Serene. Why? Because she is pure, her mother whispered. She's the last unturned blood from our family. And if they consume her, they become whole again. Serene gasped. Ethan's voice grew sharp. Then we don't let them touch her. The mother reached into her cloak and pulled out a small object. Metal, circular, glowing faint blue. This is what I went to the tower for, she said. It's old tech. Human tech, I think. It's a purifier. Ethan took it, eyes widening. A nano-purifier? Yes. It burns the infection out of the blood. I tried it on myself, that's why I didn't turn, but there's only enough power left. For one. Ethan looked at Seren. No, her mother said firmly. For me. What? She needs me, she said, her voice breaking. But if I stay like this, weak, hunted, half lost, I'll only slow you down. Ethan stared at her. We can make it together, but her hand was already pressing the device to her chest. With a soft hum, it lit up bright. Her body jerked. She gritted her teeth but stayed upright. Smoke rose from her skin. The smell of burned infection filled the air. Seren cried out, holding her mother's hand. I'm okay, the mother said, breathing fast. I'm okay now. The glow faded. Her eyes cleared. Her shoulders straightened. Outside, the creatures roared louder. They smell it, she whispered. They know they're losing. Ethan nodded. Then let's finish this. He turned to the back of the cave and kicked open a narrow tunnel that led deeper through the cliffs. Light glowed faintly at the other end. He turned to the two. We run. We don't stop. And we don't look back. Serene held her mother's hand tightly. The woman looked at Ethan. Thank you, human. You saved more than a child today. Ethan didn't answer. He just led them into the tunnel, rifle ready, heart pounding. Behind them, the stone wall cracked. The monsters were coming, but so was the fire in Ethan's chest. He had a promise to keep, and he wasn't letting either of them die tonight. The tunnel twisted through the rocks like a broken spine, narrow and sharp in places, wide and echoing in others. Ethan led the way, his rifle glowing faintly from the emergency light fixed under the barrel. Behind him, Seren's mother walked slowly, her arm around her daughter, who was beginning to shiver again. The air in the tunnel was cold, colder than outside, and it carried a smell of metal, wet stone, and something worse, like old flesh. They didn't speak much, not because they didn't want to, but because the silence was safer. Too much noise. And the creatures might find another way inside. Still, Seren whispered one question as they moved. Where does it go? Her mother replied quietly, to the ruins, the place they were made. Ethan paused. The creatures? She nodded. This tunnel leads under the old science station. Before the planet was left behind, this place was full of doctors and labs. They tried to heal. But when the plague came, they turned to something else. Ethan had heard rumors, old missions, hidden files about colonies that tried to fight infection with experiments too dangerous to repeat, but no one ever told him that one of those failed labs was still breathing beneath the soil. When they reached the tunnel's end, Ethan gently pushed open a rusted metal door. It groaned loudly. He froze, then peeked out. A wide chamber opened. Before them, dusty, cracked and full of shadows. Machines lay broken on the floor. Screens flickered on the far walls, showing nothing but static. In the center of the room stood a large glass tank, shattered. Black liquid had dried around, its base like old tar. This was the core lab, her mother said softly. It started here. Seren clung to her tightly. This is where they took Uncle Finn. He came in to help and never came back. Ethan stepped forward, eyes sharp. Then what turned them? Her mother pointed toward a ruined machine near the wall. Twisted pipes, broken wires, and a burned-out power core. That was the virus incubator. They said it would clean the blood. Instead, it made the infection stronger, smarter. It gave it memory. Ethan crouched and touched the machine's frame. It was still warm. They've been feeding it, he said, keeping it alive. Serene's eyes widened. It talks now. Her mother looked at her in shock. What? I've heard it in the fog, Seren whispered. It uses their voices. It said my name. Suddenly, the walls around them lit, up with flickering lights. Screens turned on one by one, and from each came a voice, dozens of voices, all broken, all layered, as if hundreds of people were speaking through the same mouth. Seren. Child, daughter, come closer. Ethan raised his weapon. Don't listen to it. But Seren stood frozen. She sounds like Grandma, she whispered. The voice continued. We are family. We remember. Let us in. One touch. One embrace. Then, something heavy dropped from the ceiling. A monster. Tall, rotting, with too many arms and a face that was still partly someone's uncle. It hissed. Then two more followed. Ethan opened fire. Short, fast bursts. One creature fell. Another lost a limb. But the third lunged fast and low, aiming for Seren. Her mother stepped in the way. The creature grabbed her shoulder, slamming her into the floor. She screamed. Ethan kicked the beast away and shot it in the face. Smoke filled the air. Blood, black, and red, splattered the wall. Her mother lay still, breathing but wounded. A deep slash down her side. Ethan rushed to her side. You okay? She nodded weakly, her hand over the wound. They're learning. Faster than before. Serene knelt beside her. Don't die. Please don't die again. I'm not dead. Her mother smiled through pain. Not while you're alive. More screeches echoed from the hallways beyond. More were coming. Ethan looked around, his mind racing. If this was the core, if this machine made them smarter, gave them voices, then destroying it might end everything. He stood and turned to the main tank. We end it here. Seren stepped beside him. You'll break it? With fire, he said. The only way infection doesn't spread. He grabbed fuel canisters from his pack and poured them over the tank, over the machines, over every cursed wire. Then he pulled out a thermal grenade. I need you two to run. That tunnel behind the wall leads back to the surface. Serene's mother shook her head. You'll die. I'll survive, Ethan said. But if I don't, at least you'll live. He looked at Seren, then her mother. This isn't just about survival, it's about stopping this from spreading. Seren hugged him tightly. You remembered my name. He smiled. Never forgot it. Then he pressed the trigger and threw the grenade. Go. As they ran, the lab lit up behind them. Red light, fire, screaming metal, and roaring voices as the heart of the infection began to burn. The fire roared behind them, lighting up the tunnel with flickers of red and gold. Smoke chased them like a beast with no shape, curling down the narrow passage as Seren and her mother ran, holding hands, coughing, gasping. The ground shook beneath, their feet, stone cracking, walls groaning as the old lab deep inside the earth burned. Behind them, Ethan hadn't come out yet. Seren kept looking back, her glowing eyes full of fear. He's still there, she cried. Her mother pulled her forward. He told us to run, we have to trust him. But the sounds didn't stop. Something deeper than machines was screaming inside the fire. Something alive, angry, ancient. The infection wasn't just in flesh. It had become something more. A voice. A memory. A monster. Finally, they reached the end of the tunnel. A small hatch above them opened into daylight. Cold, cloudy light poured in. Her mother pushed it open, with both hands groaning in pain from her side wound. They climbed out. Fresh air. The forest stood quiet now. The mist was thinner and the ground no longer felt cursed, but Ethan was still below. Seren turned, dropped to her knees at the tunnel entrance and screamed, Ethan! No answer. She screamed again, her voice cracking. Come back, please. Then, boom. Soft thump shook the earth as another blast echoed below. The ground cracked slightly and steam hissed from the tunnel. Serene's mother grabbed her. It's done. No, Seren cried. He promised. He said he'd come back. Tears spilled down her blue cheeks. Her tiny fists hit the ground. He gave me back my name. He gave me back you. And then, a sound. Footsteps, slow, heavy, stumbling. Serene's eyes widened. A shadow appeared in the tunnel. Coughing, climbing, covered in ash. It was Ethan. He dragged himself out, coughing hard, face black with soot, armor cracked, blood on his sleeve, but alive. Saren ran to him and threw her arms around him. "You came back. You came back." Ethan dropped to one knee, hugging her gently. "Of course I did," he said, voice rough. "You're family now." Her mother knelt beside them, tears in her eyes. "You destroyed it?" Ethan nodded. "The core's gone." The voices stopped, and it was true. The air was still now. No growls, no whispers, no footsteps in the fog. The forest was silent, but in a peaceful way. Ethan sat on a rock, breathing deeply. Serene climbed into his lap without asking, resting her head on his chest. He wrapped an arm around her, and for the first time she smiled. Her mother sat close, holding her side. "The infection won't spread now. It was trying to grow, trying to leave this planet. But you stopped it?" Ethan nodded. "But it cost everything down there." Her mother looked at him. "No, it gave us everything back." Saren whispered, "My name is Saren." He smiled down at her. "Yes? I know." They stayed like that for a while, just sitting in the broken forest in the quiet after the fire. Hours passed. The sun finally broke through the clouds. Weak golden light spilled over the trees. The mist lifted, slowly crawling away like it had lost its master. Ethan looked to the sky. His communicator blinked. The signal was working again. He pressed it. "This is Sergeant Ethan Ross, survivor. I've secured 2 civilians, 1 child, 1 adult. Mission was unplanned. But success. Total." The voice on the other side answered faintly, "Copy that, Sergeant. Evac team inbound. 40 minutes. He turned to Saren and her mother. "They're coming to get us." Saren looked up. "Will they take us to Earth?" Ethan nodded. "If you want to go." Her mother hesitated. "We've lost everything here." Ethan offered a tired smile. "Then maybe it's time to find something new." Serene grabbed both their hands. Together. They stood up slowly. A new beginning waited above the trees, above the ruined lab, above the pain. Saren had found her name again. Her mother had found her daughter again. And Ethan had found something worth saving. Not just a child, not just a family, but hope.